Welcome to Registered, the podcast of the Catholic Register, where we'll be taking a look at the stories that graced all of our platforms over the past week. I'm Mickey Conlon, editor of the Register, alongside associate editor Quinton Amundson and reporter Luke Mandato. This week's episode is brought to you by the Lift Jesus Higher Rally, being held Saturday, March 14th at the Metro Convention Centre in downtown Toronto. See ljhr.ca. We launched this week's edition with the subject we've dealt with for many years now, and we will be for many more years to come. I speak, of course, about truth and reconciliation with our Indigenous friends. And in this instance, we'll talk about the Indigenous artifacts that were recently returned to Canada from the Vatican just back in December. Our friends at King's College University in London, Ontario, recently held a forum on the repatriated artifacts. And Luke, you had a chance to speak with the two main speakers, Noah MacDonald, who's a canon lawyer with the Archdiocese of Toronto, and Dr. Cody Grote, who's on King's faculty. Both of those men are Indigenous themselves. Tell us what you learned from your conversation with them.
Yeah, thanks, Mickey. It was a very interesting sort of keynote session that was really focused on dialogue over anything. There wasn't any new news shared or broken at this event, but rather a time for the two of them to get together on this panel and just sort of have a discussion. King's University College President Dr. Robert Ventresca was also the moderator of the discussion. And he was able to bring these two voices together and sort of just talk about what it means to have dialogue, between the church and the Indigenous population continue, especially in light of this recent news of the repatriations. As you said, I was able to speak with both Noah and Dr. Grote. Grote, of course, being the assistant professor of history and Indigenous studies at Western. Both had really positive things to say about the event. They said it was a great time for conversation to take place. They said that the interactions with those in attendance was lovely to see. It was a very curiosity-driven event. And a major point stressed by both was the importance of this continued dialogue and just being able to find time to discuss these things and discuss where do we go from here? What is going to be the next step in this? As you said, this is something we've covered in depth, not just the repatriations, but really the narrative of dialogue continuing through all of these events that continue to pop up between our Indigenous communities and the church. So it was very interesting to see, and just glad it's something that they see as beneficial and something that they both said they hope continues as we move forward, more opportunities for dialogue and discussion with each other about this.
I don't think there's anyone out there that could disagree that we need to be pushing this dialogue forward, and we need to be pushing reconciliation forward. And I know, Quinton, you've done a whole bunch of stories. In fact, we've all done stories on it in the past, and I know we are seeing steps being taken. They may be small, but it's happening, and that can only be a good thing.
I think the most concrete, tangible step is really exemplified with the Indigenous Reconciliation Fund. There is a $30 million commitment for all the dioceses to raise money for projects that would be meaningful to First Nations communities, ones that would host, really promote healing and reconciliation for communities and families, revitalize culture and language, help with education and community building, and also to promote dialogues for Indigenous spirituality and culture. And since that launched in, I believe, late 2021, it's reached 24 million of the 30 million that was desired over 5 years. So they are well ahead of the target. And I think that is a really good exemplar of how enthusiastic people are in continuing the dialogue.
Yeah, well said, Quinton. And just another quick thing to note, something that Noah MacDonald said that I thought was really important is just the fact that even though this may seem like a small sort of localized event at King's University College, he said this dialogue is important. on our country's grandest stage, just as much as it is in our own backyards. Events like King's University College sort of underscores that local level of discussion. But he said, whether it's at the highest levels of church and indigenous governments or right here at home, folks are better for engaging in these topics together and as Mickey said, pushing that dialogue forward. So that's always good to see. Well,
it has to begin somewhere, right? And why not go locally? And I always love and I go back to this so often, as Archbishop Don Bolin out in Regina, who grew up in the Archdiocese of Regina, but one of the smaller rural towns. And he basically, he says, I knew nothing about the indigenous history. Well, the indigenous were in his community, for hundreds, thousands, 1,000 years perhaps before anyone came, any settlers, for lack of a better word, showed up there. So good on everyone. And I know Archbishop Bolin, he's quite sincere in pushing forward reconciliation, and let's hope it keeps going that way. So another topic we've discussed in the past, particularly in the past few weeks, is faith and film. And wouldn't you know, doesn't a new study come out to discuss faith on film? So Quinton, you spoke with the people who released this study. They had some kind of interesting views. How so?
You just said the word sincerity, Mickey, in relation to our previous segment, and sincerity and authenticity is what this really, comprehensive study by the Family Faith and Film Initiative came forward with. So they got well over 30,000 people, and they had them watch 100 scenes from motion pictures and television to really gauge how they respond to the depictions of faith in those particular movies and films. And they found that when faith-driven people are really presented authentically as people with a lot of dimensions and the human emotions of doubt and struggle, but also utmost trust, people respond well to those depictions if they really feel true to life. Whether you be atheistic or religiously committed, everybody is okay with good depictions of faith as long as they are really recognizable and they're not just fake. So, that was just very surprising. And there were certain programs that really scored well. Hacksaw Ridge from Mel Gibson, three of those scenes ranked in the top 10 because everything just looked so identifiable. There was a conscientious objector in that film, Desmond Doss, who really had to grapple with weak moments of his faith where he really doubted God's presence, but he ultimately put that trust in there, and people really gravitate towards those depictions. So as long as you're giving people recognizable human beings, whether faith-driven or not, people are willing to watch that. They just don't want to see the caricatures anymore, like the simplified, corrupt priest, something that we've seen so many times and something we faith-driven people probably roll our eyes at. And frankly, the non-believers roll their eyes at too. They just want strong, grounded characters, but we don't want that just in our faith-driven films. We want that in every single films. Unfortunately, that's such a rare thing nowadays. Good characters in movies. What a concept. Yes, but how great it would be if we could see that.
Well, this reminds me of it's not that long ago when I asked Quinton to review a film. I won't say which film it was, and Quinton did, and he says, I'm not writing anything on that thing because it was just such a load of you-know-what. So we ended up taking something from our wire service, OSV News, and ran that. I didn't discipline Quinton or anything for his insolence, but it was I could understand where he was coming from. So, well, when it comes to film, I want authenticity anyways, and it doesn't matter whether it's a faith film or not. I'm looking for that authentic, well, despite, me watching for the 50th time, the Blues Brothers or Beverly Hills Cop, I understand what those are. But outside of that, the films I like to watch are authentic. I'm very much into the historical and just based on true stories and that. So how about you guys? What do you feel about this?
Yeah, authenticity is definitely something people want to see. I think it can be difficult sometimes with the, confining run times of movies to try and get, as much information out as possible. I think some directors really struggle with, building up a character. I think it's a little easier if you have a longer run time. But the thing that I can't stand, and I don't know if you two feel the same, is just the sense of pandering that we feel sometimes watching movies currently. Even if it's not a character that you're supposed to relate to or that relates to you personally, I think it's been really easy to tell recently, just when they're pushing a character for a certain reason, or they're making a character to be a certain way or an actor to be a certain way, because they think it'll elicit a response. It's not a genuine character that's multifaceted, as Quinton was saying. So authenticity is definitely important. I'm just so sick of characters that sort of pander to a specific audience because it seems like the right thing to do. And I think that's a big part of it as well.
One thing I'll just say is these people that I spoke with from the Faith in Film Initiative, they have very good partnerships with the people in the Christian film community, but they know that the filmmakers that many of which we've covered recently, they're doing very well doing those faith-driven films. These people are wanting just good depictions of faith in action films, in drama films, more the secular entertainment. They just want better representation, maybe kind of similar to the Gay and Lesbian Alliance did for many years, trying to get good representations of people of that orientation. These people operate in that place, but for faith-driven people. And unfortunately, nowadays, in this vast sea of remakes, sequels, ripoffs, we're never really going to be getting those, characters. You need to have those niche markets like faith-driven films. And surprisingly, we're in a golden age of horror right now. Horror is one of the best places right now for original, complex characters. So I hope, more people reject what we're getting presented with and no, we want people that could really speak to the human condition. Because, I watched the old YouTube clips of the film critic Roger Ebert, and he said films at its best are a machine of empathy. So we want to be able to empathize with, various people in the human family to get a sense of what they're all about and to be able to walk a mile in their shoes, if possible, for a couple of hours. So hopefully we get back to that. And this study gets in front of the right people so changes could be made.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, if you want authenticity in media, you don't get much more authentic than Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who back in the last century, oh my God, it feels weird saying that, but he was an absolutely huge media star. His cause for sainthood is moving along. And though he was an American Catholic televangelist, for lack of a better word, not exactly your Jim Bakker type, but an authentic Catholic televangelist, Archbishop Sheen's message resonated not just in the U.S., but just as strongly throughout Canada. So, Quinton, you spoke to a Canadian who is still fascinated by Fulton Sheen's words.
Alan Smith is a very, guy. Interesting guy. He said he became so invested in learning about Sheen that while many people would go to school to get a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts, he really delved into getting a Bachelor of Sheen. Like he studied all the cassette recordings, he read all the books, And he just really felt enamored by how this guy was able to take concepts by Thomas Aquinas and a lot of the great philosophers and really communicate them in a way that could speak to the common man or woman. Like Alan Smith, he's a plumber by trade, and it felt like Sheen was really speaking to him and many others, just day-to-day Catholics trying to make sense of their faith. So for many years, Smith not only has established a society of Archbishop Sheen in Canada, but he also has started radio programs that have been well transferred. And his exploits in raising awareness of Sheen north of the border, including to many of our seminarians, caught notice of the U.S. group that's trying to push for the beatification. Alan Smith is the only non-American member on the foundation board who is very instrumental in helping Sheen become a saint down the road. And very likely before the end of 2026, we will hear him become blessed Archbishop Fulton Sheen, because a beatification ceremony is likely. Perhaps September 20th, the day that he was ordained back in 1919. So very exciting times ahead. And Alan Smith, a guy from Cambridge, Ontario, is in the thick of it right now.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So, Luke, I'm sure you've never heard of who Fulton Sheen is, and I'll give you that, but either did I before I joined the Catholic media. But I guess you're seeing nowadays a message getting out similar to what Fulton Sheen did. He was a cheerleader for the faith, and I guess you saw that in a conversation you had this week with the director of the vocations office here in the Archdiocese of Toronto, Father Matt McCarthy, and talking about the Come and See Vocations Discernment Weekend coming up.
Yes, that's right, Mickey. And when I had a chance to speak with Father Matt, it was kind of funny. I asked, tell me a little bit about this Come and See weekend coming up at St. Augustine Seminary. And he said, well, it's right in the name. It's exactly what we're offering these young men to do, is to come and see. It's a discernment weekend. And he said there's only so much discerning a person can do in their own mind. Sometimes you have to go out and get your feet wet. This is a chance to have a not super high commitment weekend, but a time to literally come and see some of the things in the seminary, some things that these young single men might be interested in. They've hosted this for years now, and he just said it's a great sort of time for these men discerning the priesthood to come and ask questions, come and see the campus down in Scarborough there, come and see what might be in store for them if their vocation so calls them to do so. So we had a nice, interesting chat about that. And interestingly, he said it comes, as you said there, Mickey, at a prosperous time for the Office of Vocations. Talked a little bit about an upward trend in recent years. I believe he said that various programs that he has where he journeys with these individuals throughout the year, there's been more men attending these groups that they've had in the past, at least since he's been in office. And I think he had said to me afterwards, after we had gone to print, that they're expecting somewhere between 40 and 50 men at this weekend retreat coming up, I believe. So those that tuned in to register get that tidbit of information that you don't get in the article. But it just seems like a great sort of event to have low stress but high reward, being able to go out physically and see if this is something that these young men are interested in as a vocation to the priesthood. So it's always good to have opportunities like that available.
Well, it's funny you say the young men, but we're doing our call to service issue this week right now, and over the years we've done so many different stories on the trends in people going into the seminary. There'd be a lot of people from Asia, Asian backgrounds, Vietnamese, Indian. Then there'd be the next the next group coming in, there'd be a lot of African men. And then we even had where there was a lot of older men coming in and trying to discern vocation. And now it's good to see there's people going to the younger people.
Absolutely. And it's funny, when I was at the installation for Bishop Joseph Dabrowski at the Diocese of Hamilton, when I was waiting to go up to the pew before the ceremony started, I was in the basement with all of these different priests from the Diocese of Hamilton, of course, and surrounding dioceses. And just as you said, Mickey, it looked like a snapshot of, if you took a photo of, a random street in Toronto, there was young guys, there was old guys, there was, every different, race and, size and shape of priests imaginable, right? And that's just a snapshot of one diocese. So imagine it here in Toronto. It's just crazy how diverse and the different trends that we've seen over the years. And yeah, I say young guys. This is open for men 18 years and older, but I think my brain automatically goes to young guys. It's what we've been seeing so often recently, which is definitely a good thing. So
it's really a church for the whole world.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this week's edition of Registered. So I'd like to thank both Luke and Quinton for joining me, as always. I'd like to thank you people who are out listening to us for joining us. We appreciate that you tune in each week. And don't be afraid to look at catholicregister.org to catch up on all of your Catholic news in the world. And also, I can't forget our sponsor, give a shout out to them, the Lift Jesus Higher Rally, which is coming to Toronto, which it does every year next month, March 14th, at the Metro Convention Center in downtown Toronto. See ljhr.ca. Again, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we hope to see you again next week.